broken back. Nobody ever asked me to help them move. I don't have to lift anything.
You've got a broken back?
Yeah, she got it from a car accident. You didn't hear that story?
Are we going to hear it again? I have not heard it.
I drove. I didn't drive. My friend was driving, and we drove off a 60-foot bridge and landed on a tree.
Oh.
Yeah.
Begs the question why you did that.
I wasn't the one driving. She was, and I think we got cut off by a box truck and hit black ice. And
You're living in a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, it was February, so there was snow piled up on the side, and it was just like an ice ramp, and we just skidded right up and over.
Wow.
You can Google it if you want, if you're bored.
Oh, it's on the...
Yeah.
You didn't know Becca does her own stunts?
I do.
Yeah.
How about you, Kurtis?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we've got storms going through, so ours has cut out a couple of times tonight. So if I suddenly disappear, you'll know why.
I got a
just
message from
one
a friend
by one.
saying YouTube went offline for them.
Oh.
I don't know if that was us or them.
Oh no.
But we're on Facebook still? Okay. So
yeah.
I actually made it to the comic book shop this week.
Oh, nice.
Jealous.
Yes. And I mean, we've got a mask mandate here in Wisconsin. So everybody's masked. I would have masked anyway, but so I mean, we feel safe going out. I go to my comic shop all the time. When the whole state was closed down, that really hurt them because at one point, they were buying books, like people's collections and stuff like that. And I'd been looking to get rid of 5 or 6 long boxes of comic books. And as the pandemic was going on, the first time I was able to go back, I went in and I said, you still buying comics? Absolutely not. They are in no position to buy comics now. I kind of wonder how many shops this is going to kill,
Yeah, I went and bought a bunch of books last week just because I didn't go to Comic-Con this year,
Mm-hmm.
So I figured I'd spend some of my Comic-Con money, and there's a really cool gallery out here called Gallery Nucleus. They have lots of concept artists and illustrators and things, and special edition art books and stuff like that. So I just got a whole box of books, and some really cool stuff. A lot of French comic books, the bande dessinée, those books.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're great. I don't know if I can show it, but this is
Curtis is all cultured.
Oh, well. Yeah, this book is insane. I just got this. It's called.
I read Claw. Which one is
awesome.
that? Which Claw is that? Is that 2 or 1?
One?
Is it?
Yeah.
Because I read the first one and I don't remember the cover like that. Yeah, I read all those French and European comics too. So Curtis isn't the only one. I love all that stuff. I was reading one called The Quest for the Time Bird. That's a really
how's
good.
that?
That was really good. It's like a fantasy one, and then I read one called Solo, which was this almost like this rat, this anthropomorphic rat in like a post-apocalyptic world. That was really cool too. I don't know if I have them around, but yeah, I get all those European, foreign comics. I love all that stuff.
Yeah, it just kind of gets you thinking in a different mode sometimes, So.
It really does. Especially one of the best. Oh yeah, hold on. That's the Solo one. It's just called Solo, and he does like a cartoonist. And the one that I use all the time is one called New York, and that one is just the artwork in that is just like amazing and stuff. So if you ever get one, it's called New York. Yeah, it's worth the artwork is worth it alone. It's fantastic.
I believe it's pronounced New York. I believe is what it's pronounced.
I think it's just their way of saying New York. It's the same reason. Yeah.
How about you, Mike? We haven't heard from you. How are you doing?
Last week I just kind of took it easy. I had over the pandemic, my graphic design business kind of slowed down, but the last month or so, it kind of picked back up, and I'm grateful for it, but it had me really kind of hopping on some stuff. So last Sunday, I just kind of took a day for myself. So
Good.
kind of just easy, watch movies, binge some stuff I hadn't watched. Just a good day with the family.
Before we get much farther along here, we're probably going to get cut off here
Start again, aren't we?
and start a new meeting. Roland's going to have to start a new meeting because we're having technical difficulties. So we'll keep rolling until we get cut. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having difficulties on Facebook's cutting in and out. Oh.
Okay.
Tiptoe around with face of a stranger, quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take.
So remember, guys, don't talk any more smack about Roland.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, the weird thing is, I was sitting here going, and then I looked up at everything had kind of stopped on the screen, and I looked up at my internet and my box, because my internet box is right up there. All the lights were off on the box.
Oops.
But my power was on and everything else was working here. So I'm like, wait, why? What? Yeah. So I don't have any idea what happened. Yeah. So are you saying make you co-host? Oh yeah.
Does have a point.
Yeah. So Kurtis is now a co-host.
Oh,
Are we live?
thank you. Finally.
Are we live?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we're live.
We're back.
I said just go back live and we'll just pick it up from there. Tonight was Chitter-Chatter anyway, so we'll chitter-chatter about this, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea what happened. But I guess that makes things interesting.
Well, we had the what was it?
Live television.
Wasn't the curse word fiasco? Wasn't that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They kicked this off YouTube, so there was that.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And
That was my fault.
Well, the thing about it is, they never gave me a reason. I mean, they never came back and said, "This is why we kicked you off." And I asked, but nope, nothing from them. So I still don't know why they did that. One of the things you have to do when for YouTube when you create them is you have to go through and say, this is intended for children or not intended for children or something like that. I always say it's not intended for children. Even though, we're family friendly, but I always go with it, not intended for children. So I don't know what the deal was going on with that. Yeah. So
we were talking about European comics when you cut us off.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Kurtis was showing us all the cool comics he's got.
Yeah,
read.
not because of me, no. Yeah. I'm an American comic guy.
Actually, I just I'm waiting for them to come in the mail. I think it was Aaron that you suggested these to me, the Lowriders to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah,
was that you? Yeah, I'm waiting for those to come in. I'm excited.
Lady. Yeah, I was signing at a comic store, and she was right next to me. Got in talking. She showed me her stuff. She's like, "Yeah, I do it all a ballpoint pen." The artist does. I think she was the writer, but they were fantastic. Yeah, they're really cool. So yeah, I'm glad. I hope you like them. I think she's local to this area. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, the writer is. At least the writer. I'm not sure about the artist, but I know the writer is.
Wait.
Yeah, she was a really nice lady.
So it's not a European comic?
No, it's not. That one. So that one is local. The artist may be from overseas, but I know she is. Gotcha. She is local, and it's more like geared for kids and stuff. But it's all done in ballpoint pen. It's really crazy looking. It's really amazing looking. So
the only European comics I have is all the blueberries.
That's what I have.
Oh yeah,
say the same thing.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't. I just wish I was even a tenth as talented as that man. Oh my God.
Yeah, I went through and bought all the Valerian comics a while ago when the movie came out and read all those. Those are worth it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they released all in hardback, and that, I guess, the comic is the one that they even write in it how it inspired Star Wars, the original Star Wars and stuff, because all the people working on Star Wars are fans of Valerian, and that was all.
Really?
So,
I never knew that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like the Millennium Falcon was inspired by the ship from Valerian. They were talking about that and stuff too.
Never knew that.
Yeah, they're definitely fun. They ended the series, I think 2005, 2004, so not super long ago. And yeah, but they're worth it. I mean, you can get it from the library. I got hardbacks because I really liked the movie and discovered the movie. The Fifth Element was supposed to be a Valerian movie, and then something happened and they couldn't get the rights to the comic. So like all the yellow cabs and the Fifth Element, that was all based on Valerian. Yeah. When you read the comics, you see yellow floating cabs and all of that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy how inspiration that book has been to a lot of sci-fi stuff we've seen today.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember Valerian. That's the one with what's a couple young actors, right?
Yeah,
Cara Delevingne, isn't it? Cara Delevingne.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of marketed to the teen crowd, like kind of like a CW type thing.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the film. And then I only discovered the comics because of the film. In fairness, but
yeah, I didn't know about the comics until I saw the film. I knew Luc Besson because I've always enjoyed his movie. And then when I read the history, some of what he wanted to do, apparently he has been his dream.
That's right.
To make a Valerian movie, and he like funded it. It was like the most expensive independent film, like $200 million or something.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was his love letter to what he grew up with, basically.
So that's a good question. How many? Of course, it's probably unfair for this group, right? Because we're not your average comic goer. But how many comics have you discovered because you saw it in a different medium first?
Umbrella Academy. I did not know that was a comic book until I started seeing the show.
Really?
Now I'm gonna have to go back and get all the books.
Yeah,
Which
know
one?
The Umbrella Academy.
Oh yeah.
You know the second season was just dropped, right?
We're watching it now.
Yeah, I was watching that last night. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was funny. I knew that was comic. I checked out the show. I like the comic. It was okay. It wasn't like super my thing. But yeah, the original comics is written by Jared. I'm gonna get this wrong. Gerard Butler.
Gerard Way.
Gerard Way. He's the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. So he's like a rock star who wrote this comic. Yeah, I know. So yeah, it was interesting. I mean, definitely different. I watched a little bit of the show, but I just assumed since I read the comic, I pretty much knew most everything. So I didn't. There was apparently there was a series that came on that was about these people raising a superpowered little boy. I think the little boy is African American.
Raising Dion.
Raising Dion. That was based on an independent comic. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I accurately read the comic.
I've seen in fact, I used to recommend it in my class.
Really?
Because it was free on Indie Planet for a long time until the show dropped.
Okay, yeah.
And then when the show came out, now you got to pay for the first issue.
This worth it. I definitely have to check it out. I didn't actually see the show, but it was cool to see an independent. And I'm always more like I throw my money towards the independent comic than the show.
I do the same.
So definitely check that one out.
And I asked that because I mean, if you have studied this at all, all of the research we think, right? And I know certainly people outside of comics think, oh, look, these movies are doing great, therefore all comic book creators must be rich and millionaires because because the Avengers made $1 bazillion right? But all the research shows that when a superhero movie comes out, there's a tiny little spike in sales, but then they drop back to normal. It does not increase comic sales with any recognizable way. But people inside the comic book industry know that. People outside the comic book industry assume that because of that comics must be selling really well. And of course, my class, you should see the looks of the my students' faces when I tell them comic books have never sold, mainstream comics have never sold worse in the entire history of comics than they do today.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we have, blockbuster bazillion-dollar movies coming out.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I first broke into comics, I tell people what I did, and most people didn't know. They would know like Superman and Batman. And that was about it. They recognized those names, but now it's become mainstream. Everybody knows, comics, I saw the movie, blah blah blah. And
right.
It's become super mainstream, so everybody is aware of comics. They're just not buying comics.
Right.
I still think it's a little bit of the collectability issue, a little bit. Like if you get people, because comic is geared, especially floppies are geared towards a collectability. So I think you see that spike of people checking them out, but unless they get that sort of I gotta collect them all bug, that sort of connection, they kind of fade off. And that's why I see graphic novels working better. Some bookstores, people are like, it's a book. I love comic books too, and even when it comes to collecting floppies, I'm just like, I don't have room for all these things. I like, but I'm guilty for waiting for trades myself, even though I'm trying to sell my book in floppies right now. So go figure, right? But yeah, I'll definitely put them in trades. But yeah, I do tend to gear towards trades and stuff than floppies. I forget. I'm the same way with TV shows. I used to forget all the time when the next episode was on, so I quit watching TV until it was all wrapped up in one, because I'd always forget when they were going to air the next one.
Yeah,
it was horrible that way.
And of course, comics were originally disposable. I mean, you mentioned collectability, but they weren't initially created that way. They were all this. What was that?
Duck?
That was aliens.
I got myself an electric eraser.
Oh,
okay.
It
sounds like a toothbrush, but yeah.
Oh, it sounded like a CB radio. I'm like, somebody's trying to buzz in on us here.
I'll try to use it sparingly.
Somebody needs to get that magical. Now I'm going to jog a few of your guys' memory. That magical pen that Bill Cosby used to use when he would draw on that kid show. Do you guys remember this?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? It would make it. Roland's looking at me like I'm nuts. Yeah, there was a show with Bill Cosby where he would draw with this pen, draw pictures, and it would play music as he drew.
Oh.
And I'm like, that's what Becca needs, so we can listen to her, listen to her ink. She would just play music as she inks. But I remember as a kid, I wanted that pen so bad. And I was always like, did they ever make it? And I don't think they ever made it. And I had no idea if the pen actually played music or something they did in post-production. I don't know. But I know in the show it was supposed to.
I'd say probably post.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
What's you're saying about comics? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Curtis.
No, you're just talking about comics and where we are now with popular media. I remember when I was a kid years ago. I remember that it was
that was like last week for you, Curtis.
It was like last week. Yeah.
They grow so fast.
Well, I am 43, so it is what it is. But back in the day, it was like it was considered like bad to like comics. It was kind of considered like there's still the stigma to it. And I remember I had a friend who wanted to get into comics. I gave him a whole bunch of issues of my Avengers that I double up. We went over to his house and we got him all set up. And his dad looked at it and his dad goes, "I don't want this trash in my house. Take it back with you."
Really?
Yeah. And it was like the Avengers. It wasn't anything like bad or whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, he was.
You didn't give him Faust.
No.
Yeah, I
know.
I had copies of it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Those are mine. That was my copy.
Wow.
Yeah, but there was still that stigma, It was considered waste of time.
That's always been an American stigma that growing up, kids read comics, adults read books, and I think
actually not quite true. You say
not
always.
Quite true. Okay.
So here's where I have to pause here. Not quite always. It wasn't until so obviously comics are a very young medium, right? And most of us are going to date comics to the late 30s, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the late 30s, they were for everybody, right? So 30s and the 40s were for everybody, and into the 50s, right? Until
further
Frederick Wortham. That's right.
Yeah.
Seduction of the Innocent.
Frederick Wortham and Seduction of the Innocent, and that's when things began to change. So
okay,
so,
that makes
so they
sense.
weren't initially viewed that way. They were initially viewed for everyone. But Frederick Wortham came along and tried to convince everyone that comic books were creating juvenile delinquents. And it's funny because I used to actually show the video, Frederick Wortham, one of the commercials in my class. I forget what it's called, but it's about a 5-minute thing. It is so serious. You may not know it, but your child might be becoming a juvenile delinquent. That's right. They might be reading comic books. and then he goes through and he shows and he reads them and of course he reads EC Comics, which of course is all horror stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so they're horror stories, but so that's when we really see the change.
That makes sense because you had romance. The things you should dominate before that were romance and horror comics, especially romance comics.
Well,
so I didn't mean to be a contrarian, but
no, that makes sense. It just seems like it's always been kind of that stigma that at least I grew up with. That makes sense, but yeah,
same here.
Yeah, that always like why are you reading that? Why don't you read a real book? And I'm like, well, what does it matter how the story is told as long as you enjoy the story?
And the thing is, in Japan, comics are completely mainstream.
Yeah,
I mean everybody reads them.
Yeah.
They're totally accepted over there.
Yeah.
Even though they based their entire manga, they got it from Disney. The guy who created manga was trying to mimic Disney, and then it developed over time.
But they also, when you talk about collectability, they're also viewed more disposable, like we view mass market novels, right? I mean, that's part of the reason we have paperback books is because those were intended to be more. I'm going to read it. I'm going to chunk it, right? And when you compare them to hardcovers, the hardcovers are the library's copies or the copies that you're going to keep. But the mass market was to get them to everybody, so you made them cheap so that everyone could have them. And so that's very much what manga does there, and I think what comics have kind of lost here.
Right. Strangely enough, I've heard some, and I don't know, I'm going to probably get a lot of this wrong, but it seemed like when they kind of tried to pull more to the direct market, they tried to focus more on the collectability of comics when they went to direct market than when they were in grocery stores and other places, which obviously we can't go backwards now because they barely sell magazines in stores, let alone comic books. But it was interesting that they were trying to, and I can understand why they're trying to invigorate the medium by saying it's a collectability, by pushing that with the direct market and the stores. But unfortunately, I think digital technology caught up where, you want to get that issue because you want to read it or complete your collection. Now people just read everything online. So I don't know. I mean, that's another huge discussion of what a collectability, because I notice a lot of people who read comics, they never read them for collectability as much as they just want to read them, which I wish that was more the prevailing. But because they just want to read them, they will do a digital download of graphic novels. So the floppies hurt because of that, because they're not buying the floppies for collectability.
Yeah. I'd say that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is trading cards are that way. But I mean, trading cards were, again, I think a lot of these things became collectible, comics, trading cards, and all that, because people thought they were disposable, and then people got nostalgic for these things, and then people started collecting them and keeping them safe. I mean, that's why obviously we know all the old comics like Superman or whatever are super collectible, because everyone threw them away. They did treat them as disposable, and people are like, wait a minute, we're gonna get, I mean, you're gonna lose a piece of history if you do this. And
then everybody jumped on the trading card bandwagon, and they flooded the market with them.
Oh God, yeah. That's why I always felt like in the Image days, I just watched that documentary of Tom McFarlane when they were talking about the speculator market and how that fell. And
how many X-Men #1s are out there now?
Yeah. And everyone's like, and I have it, and I have mine signed by Jim Lee, and they're collectability to me. But I mean, they were like, how many millions of issues did they make of that? It was unreal.
Nuts. Yeah.
I heard that sold 8.1 million copies at one point.
It was something. I think it was one
of the biggest selling comic ever.
Yeah, I think so. Still,
I still have the Death of Superman in its original manila envelope, shipped from DC, because I was on the comp list at the time.
I still have mine shrink wrapped. Yeah.
Yeah, I never took it out of the envelope. It's still in the envelope.
I mean, the thing is there may be some collectability in these days that people eventually completely, do away with print media.
Well,
Which not in our lifetime, but that could also be a possibility.
Well, so and I think actually, and we can talk about that a little bit. And I don't, I risk kind of shooting ourselves in the foot because this is kind of what Silverline is depending on now. But really, that's kind of what the Kickstarter model is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's partly catering to the idea that, hey, you support these Kickstarter exclusive issues. This is the only way you're going to get these particular copies, right? The books are going to be available and we'll hopefully be in stores. Eric Dotson says I prefer floppies. Yeah. And I agree with him, but I don't think that readers read this way today because, well, we talking about Netflix, right? How many people, when a new Netflix show drops, how many people do you know say, yes, I'm going to watch one episode a week?
Yeah.
No, they binge it, right?
And one a night. One or two a night. One or two episodes a night.
Yeah.
We watch it all in one stretch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like you, Barbara. I'm so used to watching in bits and pieces. When I hear people binging, I would just think like, isn't that unhealthy? Which I mean, I don't know. I'm like, cause they'll go like 24 hours and do this, and I'm like, don't you have anything else to do?
Yeah, I've got deadlines to meet. I can spare 1 or 2 hours a night, but good Lord, I don't have time to sit and watch 24 hours worth of a movie or whatever.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I usually couple my television. I don't watch a lot of television, but I usually couple my television watching with eating. So we usually sit down to eat, and we'll put on a show, right? And so I usually get in. I mean, something like Umbrella Academy. We haven't actually started the season yet, but once we do, we'll probably watch one a day, right, until we're done.
Yeah.
And if it's particularly addictive, we might watch one at lunch and then one again for dinner, right?
And we've got like 4 or 5 programs that we're binge watching it, and we'll work it out like a regular TV watching night. We'll watch one episode of each every night, and then the next night we'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing because
I'll
see
you just got to jump in.
Yeah, on the certain TV series, like it'll release that day, and then some site will have like, review the series, and then you see people online like, what'd you think of the series? And I'm like, what do you mean think of it? It just came out. People are already done. They're already done. And I'm just like, unbelievable. They did the same thing with video games. Like there's these super huge long video games, and then that day they're like, oh, that was okay. I'm like, that thing was like supposed to be 70 hours long. How did you? That's not physically possible. How did you do this?
When it shows up on YouTube like a day later, and people are like, here's the walkthrough.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, it must be people who get review copies early or something, because I can't figure that out. I'm like, I don't got time. My nephews would do that. They'd get a game and they'd wait for months, and then they'd play in an hour, and then they'd be like, I'm all done with that. So for a month, I'd hear about this new thing coming out, and they get it, and then they're like, okay, now it's on to the other new thing.
Yep. Yeah. It went back when we were still on campus. It wasn't unusual when a new game dropped. My students would come in the next day, and I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "I stayed up all night playing XXX new game, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, you still have class. Why can't you play it, stop it, and play it some more the next day?"
Yeah.
All right, let's Barb, you got your pad, right? Your iPad. Boot Becca.
Yeah, we'll try to watch Becca draw the same line
over and over again. I'm like, why can't I do this today? I hate when lines just don't look great.
I'm sorry if you see me making weird faces because I'm flatting on my computer, so it just looks like I'm staring into my camera like glasses. Yeah. But really I'm like flatting like over here. So
so those are not reactions to things that we're saying.
Oh no, the laughs sometimes are, but no, my squinting is not a reaction to you, I promise.
I hate to tell you, you may end up getting some of these before long.
I think I'm already on my way to need them. I'm wearing contacts right now, but I've gotten to a point where like I can't see things that are closer than here. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so
Wow.
yeah.
I went about 42, 43 years without having to need them at all. And I can't stand them. They get in my way. I forget them. And now I need more than one pair. I need the pair for my computer, and I need the pair to see long distances, and I just can't stand it.
I get a feeling I
I've
maybe
had
need
it since like 5th grade, so I'm kinda
Really?
used to it. Yeah. My brother still doesn't have them, and my entire family generally has glasses, and we're all really jealous of him.
Yeah.
Same thing with me. My family all has glasses, and I've been having certain trouble reading at certain. So I said I may need to get my eyes checked. I may need glasses. My whole family's rejoiced. I'm like, now you must join the crowd. My friend's like, I'll even pick them out. I'm like, you're not picking out my glasses for me.
One of us. One of us.
I know.
Oh my God.
I'm like, fine.
All right,
So because I'll do that. I sit on it. I'm the weirdest. Is like everyone's sitting in a chair. I sit on the floor on a pillow when I draw. I draw it at a dining room table that was my great grandmother's table, and I adopted drawing on it for some odd reason for years. And it's just a certain height, so I sit on a pillow on the floor, cross-legged. Probably like I'm not having any back problems, but I'm sure I'm screwing up something. But I'll watch TV in front of me, and I'll watch the TV for a few minutes, and then look back at my art, and everything's blurry. And it takes me a few minutes to readjust my eyes. So I'm like, okay, all right.
Well, you notice I'm working without my glasses because when I'm working close up, I can't see with my glasses.
Ha.
Really?
My father-in-law is joining us on Facebook. He said, "Hey, big dummy, what's up, Screw Loose?" There's a story behind that.
I'm sure there is.
Everybody's like, "Wait, you called your father-in-law Screw Loose?" Yeah. He actually had back surgery.
Oh, I thought he was calling you that.
No. He said he called me big dummy.
Oh.
Right. And he when he had back surgery, they actually put screws in his back, and it wasn't but like a month or two. One of them got loose. Literally was loose. The screw in his back was loose. So since that point in time, I've been calling him Screw Loose. Because I said I always knew you had a screw loose. I just didn't realize it was in your back. And Tommy Flormonti said you got to learn to work and watch TV at the same time.
Oh, no.
Well, he's a master at it.
Yes,
I mean, he
is a
even
master
does
at it.
like he'll sit there on the live stream and in that reflection, he never gives. He always has the reflection. We can see what's on his TV screen. Like every time, it's like Tommy, you got to turn that off. What are you watching tonight, Tommy? We'll watch it with you.
I do that when I'm coloring.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain things if I'm penciling or inking, I can't really watch anything.
But here's what. Okay, so
I don't enjoy coloring, so.
Not being the artist, here's what I have to question about you guys. All right, so you're not really watching it because you can't watch it and draw at the same time. So you're really just listening to it.
Yeah.
Sneaking the occasional peek.
Yeah.
Multi-talented.
But you know what's nice about that?
This is why I usually watch dramas or comedies.
You can watch something what?
You can watch something multiple times and see different things every time. So you never really get bored with something. I think I did that with the first season of The Umbrella Academy, and then like I'll rewatch it and be like, "Have I seen this episode?"
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah.
See, as a writer, I don't think you can watch something and write.
No,
it's just not possible. I don't think.
Even when I write, I have to have silence and stuff when I write. And if I'm sitting at the TV writing, I'll pause the television or write. Pause. I can't have it playing when I'm writing. I can't do it.
I can play music and write. And in fact, I think we talked about this once before. In fact, a lot of times music is kind of my soundtrack, my story soundtrack.
Right.
But yeah, I can't watch anything like a TV show or a movie or anything like that I need to, that will distract me from take my attention.
Right. Like I tried watching one of the Star Wars cartoons and couldn't do it. I would look up and be like, wait, how did Obi-Wan get there? What is going on? And so I couldn't do it. I had to actually watch. I couldn't just listen.
And see, I get annoyed because if I'm watching something and there's something that happens, and I'm like, wait, I missed that. How did I miss that? What did I miss?
Yeah.
So I'm rewinding the stupid thing, trying to get it back. I'm like, no, I can't. I gotta know how we got from here to there.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then I'm annoyed, and I literally can't focus on the rest of the story. I'm like, no, I gotta know this. Tommy says, we're watching Alienist, inking trumps and making mask. So Renee must be making
Alienist
mask.
is very good.
Is it?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. That's Luke Evans.
Andy's listening
Peter
to us.
says so then.
Yeah. I mean,
multi-talented.
trust me, I know my good television. Alienist is very good.
Yeah, Tommy says he can't TV and write, and he can't TV or code as well.
Yeah, I would think coding. Yeah, he can.
Yeah, I would imagine that you would need
Yeah,
your brain.
I have like a certain category of TV shows I can watch while I'm drawing or doing stuff. It has to be like, like kind of game shows or kind of not stuff that's that
Big Brother,
narrative oriented. Yeah, things like that, So that's a whole subsection of TV genre that I watch. But I was going to comment. You're talking about binge watching. It's kind of interesting to see creatively what's changed with media, because back when it was more serialized, right? Every week you'd have the recap previously on, and then you'd have filler episodes where they were clip shows. You had all these things that were trying to remind people what happened last week. And now, because it's streaming and because it's people binge it, you don't have to do that. You can just go straight with the story all the way through, which is kind of cool,
Yeah.
Well, and also it's changed TV because now they are interconnected. The series are interconnected stories. So it's not like, starting like Next Generation. You can watch any episode out of order as long as you know what's, you can follow the story. Very rarely does TV do that. Now every episode you have to watch episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's one huge interconnected story.
Yeah.
And which I kind of like, and I kind of miss like the days of X-Files. We'd have some really cool, because sometimes I noticed the episodes outside the story were able to do some cool things, like try something different that you've never seen. And now these you can't, because you can't do too different because of it breaks the story.
Right.
So yeah.
Tommy says he's loving our conversation. Yeah. So I'll tell you this, it's actually the whole binge idea and taking the floppies to trades has actually changed the way I write a little bit. So and of course it's too early to really point anything out at this point in time, but I've actually made sure like the last page of the issue and the first page or pages of the issue contains content that I can remove or add. So for instance, the last page of say like a cat and mouse, you got the to be continued box, right? You pop that right off because it's not to be continued in a trade. You just turn the page, right? And so the first page on issue 2, I don't need the recap captions, right? So when we go to trade for that, I'll just pop those things right off, and it won't disrupt, in my mind anyway, it won't disrupt the flow of the story as the reader's reading through. Does that make sense?
And that's the thing. I've even in writing, because mine is written to be one book. So when I'm even doing this now, where I'm ending issue 8, and then the scene ends, all scenes in a cliffhanger with my issues, because obviously I want you to pick up the next one, but again, when you get to the next issue, then the first page of the next issue needs to be a continuation, like you said, of that scene, and not like him stopping and like doing like either recapping like caption boxes, or the villain talking about what's happened, because it'd be really weird when you collect it if you turn the page and the villain's like, reveal, then you turn the page and he's like, you revealed, like you're reiterating what happened in the last page, which you would do on a floppy issue month to month. But in a graphic novel, you got to write the dialogue so it kind of flows into one book. Yeah, it's weird because you got to think that like, eventually this is going to be collected in one book, but people are going to read it straight through. Okay, yeah,
right, yeah, and that's different now.
It is.
Yeah, one thing that I don't see as much for obvious reasons, but I used to love like when you'd open like a Spider-Man book or whatever, and there'd be that one paragraph thing for like the new reader. It was like bitten by a radioactive spider. Blah, blah, blah.
I love that.
And there was, whatever comic book you pick up, there'd be that little blurb. So if you had no idea what you're doing, you would just like boom, go right into. I used to love Love
Oh, me
that.
too.
You know,
Yeah.
you can practically hear Stanley talking when you're
I
reading
know.
it, you know?
Yeah, you could. You can hear his voice. Thanks
he
for the
would-
cartoons, right?
Yeah, the
Oh,
cartoons. He
yeah.
would do that with the cartoons. He would do like
Oh.
either a recap or sort of like the Hulk, or he would always introduce the cartoons. That was like, I think, the old Spider-Man and Friends cartoons and stuff. He would do that. It was always fun.
So you know what I'm thinking of adding to our comics. I have to get more serious to do this. But do you remember, particularly in the or maybe if you, those of you who don't remember, have you seen them? Comics from the 1970s. At the very bottom, below the panels, they would have the little one sentence. It said something like, Doctor Strange takes on the werewolf in Doctor Strange number 30. Right?
Yeah.
Just one little line. I'm thinking about trying to add things like that to the SilverlineComics. Just
That'd be great.
yeah.
I kind of miss the editor's notes too. I kind of miss when you'd have like Cap and Iron Man talking like, oh well, that time you fought the Green Goblin, and then it would be like in issue 12 of West Coast Avengers, and it would be like Tom DeFalco or whatever.
Right.
I used to love that. It was like audio commentary.
Well, we're getting there, right?
Yeah.
Part of the reason that they were able to do that is because they had a backlog of stuff, right? They had a history of stuff, and I think that's an advantage they have, because they can refer to something that, and I also think that's part of what helped create collectability, is that. When you're a reader, and you know, it doesn't affect the story. If you're reading, you remember when Doc Ock did this? I'm like, no, I don't remember. And they say, oh, back in Spider-Man 58. I'm like, oh, I got to get Spider-Man 58 now because that sounds cool and I want to see it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. There was a writer, the guy who did Appleseed, would do notes, but he would actually break the fourth wall. He was really into guns in the series. And so a lot of times there would be a panel with a gun, and then he would have a note like, well, yeah, this technically wouldn't happen because the caliber of the bullet is not right, but just go with me. He would write actual like thought notes. Like, I know this wouldn't work, but go with me. Or he would start breaking down like
a director's commentary kind of thing.
Yeah, it was really different. I'd never seen any other artist do that, but it was like a running commentary of what was going on in his head too. And he'd write it in little margins.
Yeah, I know.
He would even write it like fake science. He write like, okay, well, this is because this time displacement thing was created in this era. We all know in 20, and you're like, huh, what?
What?
And he put all those weird little things together. Awesome. Yeah.
It was fun to read those, because you got to kind of look into the artist's mind, his mind, and like where he was going. Like, you know, especially when you get a lot of science fiction writers who are really into science, and they're like, well, I know I'm breaking certain physics by doing this, but you got to go with me, you know.
My iPad lost connection.
Yeah,
so
Barb, we lost your
yeah,
iPad there.
It said it was interrupted by something, so somebody else take over.
So Brett, I forgot, how do you get Pete up there?
Well, Pete's already up there because he's just streaming through his iPhone.
He tried to explain to me last time how to get yours up there in a bigger image.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, because yours is an actual window.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. I just did it. I am the co-host after all. But I had a quick question for everybody, because it just about comic books. Everybody's thoughts on this. I used to think that everybody read comic books the same way I read them, which is I kind of will like read through it really quick and grasp like the full story and read it very fast, and then I'll go back and I'll really digest the art and really dive in. But then I had a roommate one time who would actually like look at a panel, completely digest everything that was going on, and then move on to the next panel. Do you guys have what is your guys' process? I mean,
well,
does that
you see,
differ, or?
Before I was a pro, there's a big difference between before and after, because before I was a pro, I would digest every panel and then move on to the next, and I'd be done with it. But now I read through it, and then I go back and I study the art in detail.
Yeah.
And now I'm studying not only the inking, but I'm studying the coloring. So I have to like break everything apart and analyze it. It's horrible. It's kind of taking some of the enjoyment out for me.
Yeah.
I would do that now anymore. I used to read. I think I read them pretty evenly. I don't know if I went over, but I did. You know, I've heard that theory that the more detailed the art, the more it slows down the reader, and the more simple the art, the more. And I find that to be true. I find the more simplified the art a little bit, the easier it is for me to read it. And like something like Tom McFarlane, I love George Perez. But sometimes getting through a page of George Perez, you're like, because he puts so much into it, it slows it down. It's not bad. I just noticed my speed rate based on how much is impacted in it. So like for what you're saying, Kurtis, there would be certain comics. If I got a George Perez comic, would I be able to just go through it like you? No, I'd probably get slowed down just by trying to decipher what's happening in the art sometimes. But that's just my own mental, how I read things. So that's not,
Well, so there's another thing that's actually kind of contradictory. Everybody's read Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so one of the things that often is a short topic of conversation in my class is that we don't think of it this way, but the small panels speed the story up, where the larger panels slow the story down. And it sounds when you're hearing it, you're like, wait, the small panels should slow the story down, but but no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so that takes a little while for students to kind of digest and say, okay, what does that mean? How does that actually work?
I actually did that. Yeah, I actually used that same what you're talking about to purposely do an argument in my comic.
Yeah.
Where I actually did very small panels and was going back and forth, these two guys arguing, but every panel, it would start like a headshot, and then it would be the same headshot. The next panel would be a little closer on the face until the last panel is closing in on their mouth. So I was doing that sort of like quick. And then, of course, there was supposed to be this guy who's listening to him argue. The guy who's reacting to the argument is actually in the middle of the panels of a 9-panel grid. And he's the one looking back and forth. So I was playing with that. But the fact is, I wanted you to read it fast, hence what you're saying. So I use a 9-panel grid, smaller panels that create that sort of immediate back and forth of the argument. Give it a shot. I think it turned out okay. But I was playing with that idea.
So for my answer to your question, Kurtis, I think I don't read through, because to me that sounds like the equivalent of reading like the last few pages of a novel just to see how it ends, right? and then going back and reading. So I don't look at I don't read through it quickly. I will digest it slowly at a time. A part of and I know Barb mentioned it's changed having become a pro, and I think or after she became a pro, and I think for me too, because one of the things that I do now is I read for enjoyment, or try to read for enjoyment, and then go back and look to see what are the
critique it, don't you?
Yeah.
Right,
Mr. Professor.
Well, and that gets harder and harder to do. The more you do it, right, the more you work on them, it gets harder to do when you're trying to enjoy something, right? Because you see something, you're like, well, that's stupid. Why did you do that? Or that's an idiotic mistake. Why would you ever do that? Yeah.
I get that. It's like when I was taking video editing classes, and then afterwards when I see a movie, or even now, I'll be with my wife and we'll be watching that. Oh, bad jump cut. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Or like look what he did here and how he transitioned here and put it in this context. She humors me,
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that.
But it's definitely hard anymore. I read comics and I try to read it for enjoyment, but it is, once you're making them, it is always that thing in the back of your head, like you're always it's always something that's critiquing it.
Yeah.
And I'm reading one now where there's some stuff I'm like, why did that happen? And sometimes I actually envy people who are not artistic or don't care any of this stuff. That you're fun, because like
I just want to see Hulk become Thor, man.
Yeah, now that I'm interested in it, now I got to dissect this stuff. It's strange now I did that with video games. I learned how, like, 3D modeling, learned how to do it. And so when I started playing video games, I was always like, wow, this is amazing. Now when I watch it, I'm all like, yeah, the computer's doing so much of this. And it's kind of demystified it for me. I was like, well, now this isn't as cool anymore, because now I know how it's done. So I'm not as impressed. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess there's always a danger about learning how it's done. Sometimes it's better to keep it a mystery, keep it magical.
On the other hand, it can be also very inspiring. I have 2 or 3 comic books that were colored. Now, I'm still learning coloring. And they were colored so magnificently that I keep them next to me as inspiration. So, like, oh my God, I remember this panel in this one book that was, color scheme was exactly what I'm looking for. And I'll flip through it and I'll find it. So, I mean, there's that too. You can get inspired by it if you're trying to teach yourself more.
It's funny. I don't, even though I do my own coloring, I think I'm really bad at coloring. I even I color my own stuff, but I still don't look at comics for their coloring style. Maybe I should. I'm still so much of a line artist. I'm still looking at the art and the form, and I'll never really critique the color unless the color is so garish.
Well, I was gonna say coloring to me is well, I think maybe inking more than coloring. But like lettering, and Mike, you know I love you. Lettering, it should be one of those things that you don't really want to notice, you know?
Yeah.
Never, ever, no.
Yeah, if you notice it, it means that that's probably something was done wrong. Yeah. And I think coloring is a little bit like that. Is that you know, if you notice the color, it's probably because it's not, there's something off with the colors, you know?
Yeah.
They're the backup band. You shouldn't, you know, it should be a part of it, seamless. And if you notice it, well, there's probably a reason for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It hurts your eyes. It's too bright.
If there's more detail in the coloring than in the ink, that's a big problem. You know, you know, it's like a kid's play where one kid's supposed to be the tree and the tree is walking in front of the star and, you know, making a scene of himself. It's like, you know, I think restraint is the word, right? It takes a lot of restraint. To do those positions.
Yeah, that's one thing I find myself doing with Sirens is that this was inked back in the 90s and it was all black and white. Is that I find myself as an inker going back in and tweaking things, inking, you know, fixing little things and inking, and then I'll go back and color. Yeah.
Well, in your defense, there have been one or two things that I've asked you to address.
Yes.
It's like, can you do something here?
Can you put that down to a PG rating?
Yeah.
But no, I'll find, you know, stuff like I'm trying to color them, like half of her eyes gone. I better put the rest of it in, you know, and I'll go and ink it. I'll go and ink it, and then I'll go back and color it.
Yeah. I actually figured out I tend to color very saturated colors, bright, which work great for my kids' books. Don't always work great for my other comic books. So my friend basically says, like, look, just desaturate your stuff. So that's how I went. So I still color my comic book in highly saturated, like almost kids' book colors. And then I desaturate the whole page by 25% every time and be like, voila, now it looks better. And I don't know why. So it's like my cheap fix for me having to draw everything in rainbow colors, I guess. I don't know.
But you know, that's a great idea because, you know, I don't know if Tommy's still listening, but, you know, one of the things that we talk about, and you guys have probably noticed this too. One of my problems, one of my big problems with a lot of the current mainstream stuff is that you'll look at it and everything's so dark. All the colors are so muddy and kind of thing. And even in a lot of independent comics, when they kind of don't know exactly what they're doing, you see a lot of that. It just gets to be so dark. One of the things Tommy mentioned that, you know, for Kablam, one of the things they see is that happens a lot. And, you know, even when Kurtis, when we were at Malibu, you know, this is the problem that we kind of constantly had with the colorist is they would color them to look great on the screen, forgetting that it's going to be ink on paper. And what happens is it can look beautiful on the screen, but once it gets on the paper, all that ink just saturates the paper and it muddies and darkens. And so, you know, my suggestion, Aaron, it sounds like this is kind of what you're doing. My suggestion is always color it on screen exactly as you would like it. So you look at it and you go, wow, that's beautiful. I like it. Right. Once you get it there, then go in and lighten it up 10%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just lighten it up because it's going to print better that way. Right.
It's funny.
Look, yeah.
From my experience, a lot of people don't understand contrast. They understand color and different colors, but they don't understand contrast. And that's such an important thing. And sometimes that's just an adjustment at the end, but really it's something that should be in your head as you do it. But a lot of people just haven't mastered that concept and how it applies to comic books, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I'm starting to learn that more and more, just making sure like what I want you to focus is popping out, you know, more than and pushing everything to the background. I mean, this is all learning. I mean, people can study color theory for the whole life and not master it. I mean, it's huge.
Well, we've said it before on the stream, right? The minute we quit learning, I don't care how old you are or how long you've been working in the industry, the minute you quit learning, you might as well quit and go do something else.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
True. Absolutely. And if you ever think you know everything, you're in trouble.
Yeah. If you ever think you know everything, you're probably going to start losing a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Like I was telling Roland once, and just kind of figured in my martial arts classes that I teach my students, I'll say, being humble is the most important thing in martial arts. And there's always one student that goes, I'm the most humble person. Nobody's better at being humble than me. And you're like, yeah, it's not. I don't know if that's.
They quite, yeah.
Somehow,
You just kind of defeated it by talking about it.
Yeah.
I don't think you understand what that word means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Does everybody
else read?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Does everybody else read to bring back? I'm just curious. Does everybody else read comic books the same way? Like you have one pass through it and then double back slowly, or do?
Yeah,
That's what you do, Mike?
like that. Yeah. Okay. I kind of I'll read it, sit it to the side, and read another one, and then I'll go back and do a little more of a kind of cursory one. But yeah, I probably pretty close to the way you read them.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very cool.
And also, to kind of back up Curtis's question, how many people here, since we're all creators of comics, do you read comics more to study the art form or what they did, or do you read comics more for fun? Or do you have certain comics you read for fun and other ones you study the art form?
They're all for fun.
Both, yeah.
Yeah, depends who. There's some artists who I would probably try to emulate, or I think are just incredible. So I will study what they're doing. But
yeah,
I read a lot of comics and I read them for fun. So
yeah,
I read it. If I'm going to spend the money, I want to be entertained. So I buy them for fun. And if I happen to really like the art style, I'll study it. That's a side effect.
Yeah. But a lot of times I can't buy comics unless I like the art, which is my own bias and stupidity. But it's just like, unless I'm gonna, if I read the comic, if I'm not gonna be able to use it for reference or art or reference it, I sometimes have a hard time buying them. I'm trying to get over that. Like, the story may be cool and it may be, as a package as a whole good, but sometimes it's not like, look at that cool cover, and you open it up and I'm like, who drew this? And that is one of my, where I'm like immediately like that. That's why people, I understand the cover artists, but you guys got to quit doing that sometimes. Like, oh, look at that cover. Oh, that's what's the side of it. Okay, that was a cool cover.
I'm like that too. I'll pick something up because of the cover. I'll look inside and I'll go, maybe not.
Yeah, I know.
Best story ever, and I wouldn't know because I'm a terrible person. I'll just put it back.
I'm guilty of that way too much. I feel bad because I'm sure the writer, it could be like you said, the best story, but I'm like, I'm sure your story's great, but your artist kind of ruined it for me, so I'm not gonna delve in. Yeah. Like at the library, I'll read whatever because I can return it. If it sucks, I'll just bring it back to the library. I don't care. Buying it, I'm really picky. I'm the guy that all the comic shop owners hate because I'll wander around the store for like 30, 45 minutes trying to find that one or two thing that's it's gonna inspire me, and I never come and just pick
below
up
my
stuff.
table even further because that's me too. Exactly the same way.
But I think though I don't think you guys should feel terrible about that because I think that is comics. Right. I mean, a comic reader, we're talking about this from the perspective of people who make them, but comic book readers will do the same thing. Right. Yeah. They'll open it up. And if they don't like the art, they're not going to take it home. Yeah. Right. They're just not. Not unless they love the cover so much that they have to go home with the cover. Or not unless they know the writer and like, okay, well, I know this writer. And so I'm going to give the art a little pass because this writer is a known entity to me, right? or a known quantity, and I'm going to take it home because I can trust what this writer is going to do, even though this artwork may not be,
And I'm the horrible because I hear people online and stuff talking, this comic's great or whatever, and then I'll read the comic, and so many times I'll come by with like. Yeah. And I asked my friend Tom, who reads a ton of comics, and I'm like, "What is your feeling of comics?" It's like I don't know. It's like I love the medium. I love comics, but it's like every comic book I read now, I get to the end, and I'm just like, "Yeah, that was cool." I guess And that was like when Saga came out. Everyone was, I read the first volume of Saga, and I was just like, "Yeah, okay." And I felt bad because I'm like, "This is supposed to be really good," and it was well done, but it was just I don't know. I have very eclectic tastes, I guess. What can I say? But stop me from buying comics that people really recommend. I'm like, let me find a way to like read more on this before I buy it.
Well,
I've had that problem so many times.
So here's the other thing. Okay, so when I was in college, one of my jobs, I worked retail. So I worked at a record store for a long time, back when my hair was down to my bra strap, and yeah,
these pictures. So I'm not laughing. That's
he was mullet man. I mean,
oh man,
hold on 1 minute.
I'm gonna scan these for the throwback, but I don't know if you can see those.
Look at that.
That's me and BJ probably from about 91 or so. Yeah. But crap, what was I saying?
You're talking
got me distracted about.
You said bra strap, and then my mind just,
Yeah, no.
That usually happens to me too. I didn't even know what we were talking about.
I was talking about
college. Something about when you were in college and you had a job. You had a day job.
Yeah. Thank you, Kurtis.
Yeah.
So
somebody's got to keep us on track.
I worked in retail, right? And so one of the things I think you have to learn to do as a reader / buyer / consumer is find the sources you trust. So, for instance, when I worked at a record store, I have very particular taste in music, and there were customers that would come in that grew to trust my taste. So they would come in and they would say, "Roland, what should I buy this week? What's new, or what should I try?" And then because they trusted my taste, I could say, "Oh, well, do you have this? Do you have that? Or this new thing has just come in, you should buy it." And I over time I developed a group of customers that would come in and they would buy something simply because I recommended it. And I think, Aaron, as a consumer, as a comic consumer, you have to find that valued voice yourself.
Right.
You've got to find that voice that when they say, "I like this," you're going to go try it.
Yeah. I still usually try it from the library. I guess I'm a cheapskate like that. But there's lots of stuff I've bought from after I've read it from the library. If I see it, I'll buy it. There's a lot of stuff I get from the library I've never seen in stores. There's lots of stuff I've read. One called Marzi, I think I've talked about, which is a really cool book, and I've never seen it in stores. I just got it from the library. I loved it.
Eric Dotson says, at conventions, we encourage people to open our comics before they buy them.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing, because again, you're talking about the covers. They can see the covers, but if they sit there, they pick up your comic and they flip through it, then they can see what the art's going to be. I think that's a great idea.
For me, sometimes if the cover's too good, like I'll be really frank, like I think he's a phenomenal artist, but if I see an Adam Hughes cover, I'll be like, okay, I'm not gonna fall for it this time. Let me look at what the actual inside is, or Travis Charest or somebody like, it's like somebody, if the cover's too good, it's almost too good to be true. I'm really wary of the inside, So it kind of works the opposite way for me these days, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that's why I don't do, and I could be way maybe our Roland. Do you have other ideas why you don't do alternative covers? One of the reasons why I don't do a lot of them is because I really want, what you see on the cover is what you get inside, same art style. And I guess that's really important to me because, like Kurtis said, I have been duped one too many times with that one. So I'm like, no, don't judge you.
Here's the thing, and as a rule, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
But stepping back from that, I'm the creator kind of guy to, okay, we got to sell comics, right? To sort of the publishing role. It's like, if we could get X to do a cover, we could sell more books, and that helps everybody all the way around, right?
Oh, I know there's a catch. Like if I got somebody famous or somebody I really like to do a cover, and I did a cover that I used to, I think if you guys looked at my website, I do this series of prints that is more my fine art a little bit, I guess. I think it's called The Edge of the Horizon is what I call the series. And I plan on doing another one. And it's a little more risque, figure drawing mixed with like mechanical stuff. And I was just doing these for fun. I don't know where they came from. They were just something, it was completely different from comics, something I was just exercising my art. And my friend liked them so much. He's like, you should do an alternate cover for his book. And I'm like, okay, well, send me some of your reference. He's like, no, just do one of your covers. As long as it gets the same feel. And I'm like, okay. And so I did. This lady holding like his signature for his comic, and I don't know if anyone ever got it. I thought I liked the cover, but I think a lot of people just saw it and it's like, what is this? He loved it. So I mean, I did it for him, and I put it.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. So that I was like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. But it was weird that he was like, I don't really want it to be represent anything in the comic. I just wanted to have that sort of feel that, and I was like, okay, yeah. So
I can't break the news for him, but John Medic has a celebrity cover for the one of the Sniper and Rook things that we're working on. That is really going to blow some people away. Is like, how did that happen? Right? Not my news to tell. That's John's news, right?
Yeah.
But it's like,
I was thrilled to get Mel Ruby and Jeff Johnson on.
Yes. Oh, and we got to talk about that Jeff Johnson piece. I absolutely love that Jeff Johnson piece, and it needs to be a cover somewhere. We've got to find maybe it's the trade cover. I don't know. It's a gorgeous piece, and you colored that, right?
I did.
Yeah, and that just the whole thing is just.
I colored the Mel Ruby and the. Also, yeah. Yeah, gorgeous. And piece. The Kevin West piece, yes. Yeah.
So here's a sort of a classic comic question for you. Anybody ever order anything out of the classified ads in the back?
No, I never did. But I actually saw a video of somebody.
Mike Belcher, you're shaking your head. No, I almost don't think I believe Mr. Kentucky there. You had to have ordered. You had to have ordered the seahorses. Yeah,
I ordered them.
Now, I bought seahorses at like a toy store, but I never bought them off as a ad in the comic. No.
Really?
Oh yeah. Well,
I expected you to be the first one to pop up and say, "Yep, I did. I got seahorses."
No seahorses. No Charles Atlas.
Sea monkeys.
That's it. Sea monkeys.
Yeah, no Charles Atlas.
No,
yeah.
So
yeah. No, there was a video.
I saw some ads the other day.
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying I was reading one of the old ones the other day, and on one page it literally had, "Are you fat? Take these pills to lose weight." And then literally on the next page is, "Are you too thin? Take these pills to gain mass." And these kids reading these comics will have a complex by the end of the issue.
Wait, was it the same address? What's that, Delia?
So was it the same pill?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Probably was.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. One size fits all.
Yeah.
Like that Doctor Who episode with the little, pill, the little fat guys that they take the thing and then they come out of their body and eventually don't exist anymore.
So what did you order, Curtis?
Oh, I ordered the sea monkeys.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
I totally did.
Did it work? Were they alive?
Do you know what they are? Do you guys know what they are?
No.
Yeah, they're krill.
Yeah, they're brine shrimp.
Brine shrimp.
Yeah. Are they really?
Yeah. And I was like, my dad was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it. It's just a waste of money." I'm like, "But I have to know. This is
yeah, and they really sea monkeys.
The only one way to know.
Dad, there's a family.
Yeah. And then we put them in the water. They grew into brine shrimp. And then the next day, my uncle who had an aquarium, I went over to his place and he was feeding them sea monkeys, the brine shrimp. He was feeding the big fish. You could have just gone to the aquarium store and gotten it. So yeah.
Well, now I know that mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a video of somebody going through all of those things, like the tank, the X-ray glasses, and actually showing what you actually
Barb.
got.
I know you had to order something.
I didn't know.
Really?
Oh
man, I feel bad now. Eric Dodson says I wanted the Trunk of Soldiers, and he actually had the hand buzzer. So I ordered. Let's see.
If I was going to order anything out of the back of the book, it would have been how to draw. Here, draw like a professional in 3 steps, whatever.
So I ordered comic books multiple times from different vendors in the classifieds. And I ordered, I don't know if it's talking about the same one, but Eric Dotson mentioned the Trunk of Soldiers. I ordered soldiers off of the there was always a pack of World War II.
Yeah.
They were crap.
Really?
They were crap.
Just plastic?
No, oh, they were skinny plastic too. They were.
Yeah.
They weren't the army men like you see like in Toy Story. Those I love, right? That's kind of what I was expecting. But this one showed tanks and planes and stuff, and they were tiny little hard plastic things that wouldn't even set up half the time. I hated those things.
I joined fan groups from the back of the magazines.
Okay, like what?
First one I joined was the ElfQuest fan group.
Oh, really?
I made a lot of friends that way.
Huh?
I'm still friends with some of them today. So yeah.
Nice.
Fan groups. I remember reading all the Twinkie ads. I still vividly remember the Meatloaf one. I had no idea who Meatloaf was. And I see the singer as a cartoon of him eating Twinkies or whatever. And even when I found that, I'm like, this guy's just, who is? I didn't even know he was a singer. I actually did discover Kiss through those ads. I had no idea they were a band.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because they were, and I just like, well, look at all these really cool guys. And I didn't even actually listen to the music. I just thought they looked cool. I mean, they were like superheroes. So I mean, what did I know? Yeah, I didn't even register. Later on, it's like, they make music? What the hell? And yeah, I remember those all the Twinkie ads or whatever. Do you guys remember they used to do the Saturday morning cartoon ads, like the big double page spreads of like what was coming that fall to like Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Those are always fun.
They had Kirby and Gil Kane art on them.
Really
nice to see. They were good work.
Yeah, they were really cool, and there was this huge.
Hey, Becca, share your screen, will you?
What? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Brett, can you put Becca and Pete both up there at the same time? Try. Okay, try.
You're asking.
You try. No, I'm asking Brett. Who no one can hear. You try it. We'll keep talking. Okay, cool. Yep, cool. Yeah. All right, so I'm sorry for interrupting. I need to be able to like shut my mic off so only Brett can hear me. I gotta figure that out so I can give him the occasional directions.
We'd rather have you interrupt us than get lost again. So
yeah.
Eric says I always wanted to see the 7-foot Frankenstein. So I always wanted to order the X-ray glasses.
I always did see
to see if they worked. You know,
I always want to know what they were. I mean, obviously you knew they didn't work because you're just thinking like, but like, actually, what did you see? Did you Was it just like a red tinted glasses? I mean, what?
Yeah.
I mean, even as a kid, I'm just thinking like, they really have something in the back of this magazine that can do what Superman can do. Come on, that can't be real.
Yeah, no, I never believed it, but I wanted to believe it. You know?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I don't believe that.
The willing suspension of disbelief.
Yeah. That's I desperately wanted to believe so much of that stuff back there.
I wanted the hoverboard. There was one.
Was there?
I wanted one you could supposedly you could sit in it, and it had like 3 directions, and it had supposedly they'll send you plans, and you use a vacuum cleaner, but it was completely ludicrous. But I wanted to around my neighborhood instead of riding a bike. I wanted to be the guy with the hoverboard. So
yeah.
But don't you think that the people who put the ads in the back of comics, I mean, they knew they were targeting the exact right audience. I mean, what is reading comics but the suspension of disbelief?
Right.
I'm reading about superheroes and flying men. Oh yeah, sea monkey, sure. Makes perfect sense to me.
Yes. I take offense
X-ray
to that,
glasses.
Well, Curtis, if the shoe fits.
Barb, I was 35 years old. That was 7 years ago. So leave me alone, okay?
Was it the promise of the happy family with the dad and the mom and the kids? That's what it was, wasn't it, Curtis?
It was. You got me.
Yeah, I always want to know. I have to admit, I'm with Curtis. There was many times I'm like, what are sea monkeys? What are they selling?
Yeah.
Now I know, but yeah.
See, I took it for the team. I did it for the team, and you guys don't have to.
No, I know that mystery.
Yeah.
The X-ray glasses, we will never know.
Purely for research purposes. Thank you for taking one for the team, Curtis.
There was all sorts of weird stuff. I remember getting these, and I don't think it was a back of comics, but it might have been. But there were these weird fish that were like, remember all the weird. It was like a red plastic film. It was a fish, and it was the idea you were supposed to put it in your palm of your hand, and then the fish would curl up from the heat of your hand or something like that. But I remember this, like, put this little plastic fish in your hand, and it'll do amazing. And that was it. That was, and of course, as a kid, you're like, wow, look at that. I mean, we were really entertained back then.
all that stuff was like just carny literature, basically.
It really was. It was basically selling snake oil, but the kids, and they did it really well.
Yeah. Well, that's what comics were. They were advertising to kids. That was, those were in there to begin with. They were, there was a medium for kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
I still remember those ads.
And you had to go beg your mom for $1 to send it in. Please, Mom, please.
Yeah.
I gotta have the X-ray glasses.
Yeah. I want to be able to see your skeleton.
Well, that was the same thing with the prizes and cereal boxes you would have for
Cracker Jacks.
Yeah, Cracker Jacks. Yeah, everyone wanted to get, and you always got the tattoos. Never got the cool stuff. Yeah. Always got the one thing I didn't want. My friend would be like, "Look, I got a puzzle. What'd you get? Nothing."
I got a rock.
I got a rock. Yeah.
What's the reference? Somebody?
That's Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I always forget about Charlie Brown, but that's not the reference I'm thinking of.
Oh, it's not.
No, it's the Hulk.
Oh.
So familiar.
So when Marvel, this probably, I don't know exactly what year this is, late 80s, when Marvel did their line of toys, all of the figures had a little something with them, right? Captain America had a shield, Falcon had a Red Wing, right? And they all had something. Thor had the hammer, Hulk had a rock.
Yeah.
And it is one of these meta instances in the comics. They were talking about the toys, right, and all the cool things that they had, and Hulk says, "I got a rock."
I still remember he eventually moved up to bending an iron beam. Wasn't that like a steel beam he would bend?
Oh yeah. I think I remember that. Yeah.
They never could quite figure out what to give the Hulk. I mean, you could kind of give him. And the one thing I don't know, and maybe they've done it. I remember in the comics, he would like pick up a car sometimes and smash the car and then make like these fists out of the car. Like he'd bend the metal over. I was like, why didn't they just do that? I mean, if I could get like a little Hulk figure with like car hands or something, I mean, I would do that. But no, it was always like, same with Superman. Superman also had the steel beam he could bend, I guess.
Here you go. Apparently, it's from Hulk 385. And I don't know who this is here, but they're looking at the toys. It says, "These are so cool, right? These are cool toys." Cap comes with a shield launcher, and the Surfer has a great rolling surfboard. Hulk says, "I got a rock." And Punisher has all these machine guns. "I got a rock."
Okay, so can any of you guys answer me a question? Did the Silver Surfer, did they ever draw him with a fin on the bottom of the surfboard? I vaguely remember that one issue they actually drew a fin on the bottom like a regular surfboard, but again, why would you do that in space? But I get a feeling they did that at one time, and again, it would be like,
never got into the Silver Surfer. I thought it was boring as hell.
I
think I read the Stanley. Was it Jack that did the first issue?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, Jack created him. I mean, so.
Okay, so I don't mean the very first issue, because obviously I think I was too young when that came around. But didn't they relaunch it somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s?
I think so. He became much more of like, he kind of like clicked into that surfer culture, like the Ghost Rider clicked into more of like that Easy Rider culture of like the bike. So see, because I was reading the history of the Ghost Rider, I always thought he was like a cowboy, like a completely white cowboy. That was and then they made him, into the motorcycle stunt right after Evel Knievel, whatever. And I thought that was cool.
You ever see that album cover with Silver Surfer with Joe Satriani?
Joe Satriani.
Yeah.
Listen, I had no idea who Joe Satriani was. I bought the album
Just
only
for the
because
Just for that.
Silver Surfer. I'm like, whoever's going to put Silver Surfer on their album needs to be listened to by me.
I actually did have that. Now it's been lost to the years, but I did actually have that Spider-Man album. Does anybody remember this? It was a
I
vinyl
can go
record.
put my hands on it in about 30 seconds, probably.
Yeah, it was like a cover, and it showed him like walking or something in front of a mirror. I think on the cover. It's been so many years, but I think like the whole thing is like, didn't it tell the story of Spider-Man or something? And I don't know.
It was multiple stories. There was like 10 stories in there.
Yeah,
I've forgotten where they're from. But now, so you remember Power Records then, right?
A little bit.
Power Records. Oh my gosh, I had those. That's where they would take a printed comic and would actually get voice actors to read through the comic.
I remember them doing that. I remember them doing that a lot with the Star Wars storybooks.
And to make that happen for Silverline, but it's been a long, slow process. Shh.
I don't have the capabilities to do it, but I'm trying to locate that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'm very, very, very close. But the thing about it is, when I send them the Power Records examples, I'm like, okay, so these Power Records were from the late 1970s. I don't want that cheesy aspect of it.
Right.
I like what this is, but let's take it more like a radio show that was kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I remember the old kids' books had the record in the back, and it would make the chimes when you needed to turn the page.
I remember those.
Yeah. Used to have those. Why would they give records to kids? I don't know. Because the record always was scratched by, after a while.
So you're going for more of an old time radio feel.
Yes. Yeah. Because I love the idea that you could. So one of the things I loved about the Power Records, because I had the Captain America and I had the Spider-Man one, and I really loved the Captain America. I think it's from 178. I eventually later on got the original comic, but I could actually read the comic and listen to the voice actors. Right now, I listen to them now, and I think, man, those are some bad choices for Captain America and for Sam. Right? But, back when I was a kid, I mean, these were really cool because I'm listening to Cap talk and, Sam Wilson talk and Red Wing fly.
Did they do the sound effects and all that?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I had the Hulk one. Yeah.
The Hulk one, yeah. They had Hulk. They had Hulk. Well, who was it? Hulk versus what?
Hulk versus the Abomination. So you had all these rough voices. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. They also had a Fantastic Four one. So yeah, those and I think you can find those all on YouTube now.
There's somebody that's been somebody on Instagram has been posting these old Masters of the Universe storybooks, and he keeps doing these. And every time I come as post, I'm like, I think I had that book as a kid. So it's weird that I'm like, that's really jogging a very old brain and trying to remember something from long ago. So, but I'm always like, but now he's posted every single one that I can't remember which one I had and which one I've just seen. So now I'm confused anymore. So
does anybody recall when Wolverine was animated, like the first several times he had an Australian accent?
Yeah, that was in that.
So odd.
It was in that they tried to launch this X-Men series, and they made this initial pilot episode called The Pride of Kitty Pryde or something like that. It was really amazing.
It's better looking.
It still looks good, and I think that's the one where he had the Australian accent. I think that was one of the cartoons where he had it. And
Amazing Friends. I think that was the Australian accent.
That's the first one too. Yeah, when he was in Spider-Man. Yeah. I was so confused when I saw that.
It's like he's Canadian. What?
Yeah.
So Eric Dodson says the fish that Aaron was talking about was a red cellophane fortune teller miracle fish from Cracker Jacks.
That's what it was. And I remember it was. I was always amazed.
He's got a link here on Facebook too.
Oh, nice, good man.
Yeah. What we used to be amazed with as kids. I mean, now kids are like, engaged in virtual worlds and virtual reality. Back then, it's like, look, a fish that bends in your hand. What will science think of next?
So I can't remember speaking of the fish, right? I can't remember the exact numbers. So just go with me on here. But my daughter was reading a book about something about how our attention has been taken by all the technology, right?
Yeah.
And there's all the scientists. They I don't know how they do it, but they calculate the average attention span of a human being, and apparently they do this with animals too. Who knew?
It's like a tsetse fly. That's how my attention span is.
Well, apparently a goldfish has the attention span of about 9 seconds. Again, don't hold me to the exact numbers. Human beings now have the attention span of about 7 seconds. So goldfish now have a higher attention span than human beings.
That's just because we always have to be number one. 9 seconds, we can beat that.
I always thought it was because we're more like Baruka from Willy Wonka. I want it, and I want it now.
Oh man, I think that's the epitome of most people. Yeah, but even like watching TV. Have you guys ever watched clips of old TV when they did commercials? And because I remember somebody years ago mentioned like, well, yeah, but TV, they like show something for like every 10 seconds they cut to something else. It's so fast. And once he said that, I started realizing it. Like I started noticing it. And then I would watch old TV where they would just kind of like, even in commercials, the guy would sit at the table and actually show you the product and talk about it. And now they're like these animated little movies and stuff. So yeah.
Has anybody ever seen it? It's kind of topic, but it's a documentary called The Century of Self. But it's absolutely fascinating. You can find it on YouTube, and it's about PR marketing and how it started. And the fascinating thing is PR started actually from Sigmund Freud's nephew, came to the US and used psychoanalysis for advertising.
Really?
And yeah, when you hear about how a lot of things that we experience today, they used it for, it's fascinating. Like the first time they used it was for smoking, because women didn't smoke way back when. It was a faux pas. And the tobacco industry realized if they could get women to smoke, they could double their profits, because half the population.
Right.
So they tied themselves to the suffrage movement that was going on at the time. And they had all these debutantes, they gave them cigarettes, and they went ahead and they put a press release, the first time a press release was used. And they tipped the newspapers off that these women will be marching for their rights down this street, down New York. And when they reached this appropriate time at an appropriate distance, they would light torches of freedom to show their solidarity and freedom. And when they got there, they all pulled out their cigarettes and started smoking. And it shocked everybody. And all these women started smoking because they wanted to be strong women, just like these were. And that's how they started it.
Wow.
And the other one, I won't go too far, but the other part that's fascinating is Betty Crocker. I guess when Betty Crocker first came out, they were having a really hard time selling instant mix cakes because the women at the time that were housewives were unwilling to purchase it because they felt it was a cheat. They tied their self-worth with what they could produce for their family. And it was too easy. So this guy, Sigmund Freud's nephew, said, just tell them they have to crack an egg and throw an egg in there. He goes, that one little act will be enough that they feel that they're actually making something more. And they did that, started selling.
Wow.
So,
What is the name of this
it's fascinating. Yeah.
Is he the one that came up with the subliminal messaging? Is he the one that came up with that?
Yeah, he's tied to a lot of that, and focus groups, and he's the one that came up with the idea of focus groups. And what most people don't realize, when you have a focus group for a product, it's a psychoanalysis session, is what it is what focus groups are actually. So yeah, I watch it, but you won't see the world the same. It's fascinating documentary.
So what is the name of the documentary?
The Century of Self.
Century of Self, and it's on Netflix.
You can find it on YouTube. I think it was a BBC production maybe or something, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, I like that. I'm always interested in psychological stuff, so yeah, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Yeah.
Well, my clock says 10:48, so I guess we need to be winding down here. As always, it's been fun, guys. Fun conversation. So tomorrow night. For the Silverline one-on-one, I will be talking one-on-one with R.A. Jones. Longtime veteran comic book writer and writer of Twilight Grimm and also the co-writer for Divinity. So Ari's been working in comics for a long time. So come on, bring some questions, ask some questions. I've got a whole list of my questions that I'm going to ask him, about his comics, comic background, reading, and all that kind of stuff. But you bring your questions too. Wednesday, then the Wednesday Wham group will be on, and then we will be on again next week. And we're going to be talking about casting our comics. We're going to talk about people we would like to see in our comics, the comics that we're working on. So you guys got some homework, right? You can look up some actresses that you want in your comics. Now, we're not going to cast the next Avengers. We're casting our comics. Okay. So don't just do yours, but cast, think about some of the others as well. So Becca, think about cast for Divinity, right? Who you might place in Divinity, that kind of thing. I'm seeing some messages. Kasisi says, thanks guys, cool topic. Tommy says, great talk guys, good stuff. So that's next week. This coming week, this is all what's happening as we move forward. What else? Don't forget our merch store. I'll put all the links in the appropriate places online. But now let's go around and tell everyone where they can find you on the interwebs. Delia, we'll start with you since you're the first timer here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. We just, as I told you when I first reached out to you, we just talk comics. It's a way to push Silverline. It's a way to push us. And just kind of have a cool time hanging out. So where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at _DELIAMARIE. So _Delia Marie. That's where I am. And Facebook, I think it's like Delia Marie Art or something like that.
So be sure just before or just after you get off of here, zap those links to me. So that I can include it here.
Yeah, no problem.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Aaron, what about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Instagram on at ALH3810. That's my handle. Facebook at Humphres Illustration, HUMPHRES. I'm on there, and then you can find my Godlings on Webtoons. Just search Godlings, you'll find it. I think that's it. I think that's most of it. Yeah, for right now.
All right. Kurtis, how about you? Where can folks find you on the web?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook. It's Kurtis Fujita. You can also find myself and my martial arts school on Instagram and YouTube. It's Tiger Crane 805. Those are the places you can find me.
Cool. Pete, how about you? Where can folks find you on the British webs?
So, yes, it's the British one. It's the better one. It's Peter Clinton Art is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Instagram is where most things go first. I have a Webtoons and there's an Instagram comic as well, but I think I've sent you all links for that. So if people want to find them, check out the links.
What's the? I think I read your Webtoons one. Remind me which one it was.
Webtoons is the pirate one.
Yeah, I read it. Cool.
And then
stuff.
the Instagram
like
comics.
2 episodes up.
Yeah. They take so long. I don't have time to do them.
That's why it's called work.
Yeah. And I've got an Instagram comic which I was doing weekly, but I've got too busy. Yeah. So I've got 2 more chapters to go on that, and then we'll see if I do another one.
Cool. So how much of a delay is it the internet to get across the channel? The channel, I mean. The channel is actually the tunnel, right? The channel.
Yeah, it's not too bad. You have to get your own translation, I think.
Yeah. Hey, that's why I love Google Translate.
That's right.
Barb, what about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
There's my name, Barb Kaalberg, and you can find me, or Barbara Kaalberg, by that name on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Did you swipe that from San Diego Comic-Con?
I did. from the Malibu.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I so desperately wanted to be there for that.
Yeah, I was a
Very
guest.
Cool. Yeah, the only I have you can't see it from here, but up on my wall I have a whole bunch of my badges just dangling from a clip up there. Becca, how about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Apparently she's already ahead of the game.
Yes. I remember to write it down. So you can find me on Instagram at comic art or Twitter that I really need to start using at rrwinslow890 or Facebook at Rebecca, I think my name is Winslow. That's my name. Rebecca Winslow.
Okay. And Becca, I'll have all the links. Make sure. Yes. Mike, what about you?
You can find me, Mike W. Belcher, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then you can find Man in the Mask on Webtoons and amkcomics.com.
And that's, you're always updating that. How often do you update Man in the Mask?
Well, I have been doing weekly, but I'm a little bit of a hiatus, trying to catch up on some real work. So, but a week or two, everything should be back and running again.
So, like, is this like a page a week?
Actually, I've been trying to do about 8 pages a week.
Wow.
Well, I got with, like I said, slow down at work, I got up quite a bit. So I tried to put a little break in there so that I always got something in the tank.
Gotcha.
So I've been trying to do 8 pages a clip, but probably it'll slow down. But right now, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it sounds good. Well, I am Roland Mann. You can find me at ManRoland on Twitter and Roland Mann on Facebook, and then all the other places. I'll put them in the links below. And until next time, remember to make mine Silverline. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Brett, take us out. Oh, I forgot to introduce Brett. Brett, I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you next time.